love it, or there are people who are not loving how the corruption is being fought, and whether it's being politicized or whether it is being weaponized against.
No love lost.
Yeah, so clearly there's a love issue there. But Nurdin Haji was here last night on JKL, and he said some very interesting things. And that list that he gave, this one here, you know, there are people who thought it was, we made it up. We didn't. This is the list that he gave, together with other many documents. When I look at this list, probably he was trying to politically answer what has been politically leveled against him and his ability to work, and whether he's targeting particularly the Kalenjin community in the fight against corruption. Exactly, because look at it, the list shocked a lot of people. And when the DPP was here, and I'm going to read a bit about what was on that list. Embu, it is actually all the major anti-corruption cases registered from 1st of April 2018 to date. And you look at the tribe. The Kikuyu were 141. The Kalenjin are 46. The Luo are 56. The Kisi are 37. The Meru are 16. The Swahili and Mijikenda are 34. The Somali and Borana are 16. The Indians are 15. We have 1 expatriate and 5 Embus. We have 2 Maasai. We have 1 Samburu. We have 1 Taita. We have 3 people, suspects from Turkana, and we have 31 from the Kamba community. There is a list on your screen.
Well. Yeah. But I think for me, it is really, really sad that we've come to a point in this country where we are seeking corruption to be this equal opportunity sort of regional balancing, where we want to balance everything and say, hey, how many people from this place are corrupt or are being suspected of having engaged. I think that is really the lowest that you can go to in terms of just how things are done in a country. But I think as someone was remarking here, that the DPP was basically dealing with something that people like himself don't normally acknowledge, that actually what they do at the end of the day is affected by the politics of the day, and that they have to in some ways respond to that, because if people out there, you need public support for you to succeed in this sort of thing. So if people are every weekend in some funeral, in this rally and the other, are basically throwing mud at DCI and DPP and all these institutions, people begin to doubt whether what you're doing is really coming from a good place. And so I think that in some ways, whereas this is very important information, I think there's a sense in which these offices are beginning to feel that heat, which is tragic, so that at the end of the day, they might not be focusing too much on who is really guilty, but thinking, oh, wait a minute, how many Kikuyus are here before we proceed? And I think if it got to that, it would really be tragic. Yvonne, this has been said time and again, but for purposes of clarity, let's repeat that cliche. Corruption has no tribe. There's only the tribe of the corrupt. The corrupt don't steal on behalf of their tribe.
And yet, here the DPP is trying to justify. And I also saw a lot of people taking issue with this list that was actually put out yesterday by Jeff Koinange when he was interviewing the DPP himself, that in as much as we keep saying exactly what you've said, that no one steals on behalf of the community, and yet we still have to do a list that puts so-and-so, how many people, and talking about, just the politics of how you handle who is where, how many people. Will there be a point at which this will be more equal than we see it? Those are some of the questions that you ask, why we have to justify this. And in putting out this list, are we then also vilifying communities? There were people who are saying, the Kikuyu, I'm ashamed, the Kalenjin,
far from it. I think some communities will feel left out.
Because they're not on the list?
They're not on the list. And that's on a light note. But I agree with Joe. The DPP has been pushed to a corner. Because remember the narrative that was coming around the dam scandal. That, look, don't target a community. Don't target individuals from a particular community. We've been forced to go this direction. And I think this works. This would explain, especially to the vulnerable masses that believe those narratives, that your community is being targeted. So, right now, they should also have this information that apart from your village mate, there are other village mates of people from other regions of the country that are being pursued, not because they come from where they come, but because there is a corruption case under investigation.
I want to read,
I think it was a good move by the DPP. He had no option but to go this direction.
But the backlash, has been huge. In fact,
it's because we pretend a lot. We are pretenders.
There are people who are saying that the DPP has now played into the hands of the politicians who are accusing him of weaponizing the war against corruption against them.
It would be the same people who had made the initial argument
that
about
this is
being
tribal.
Tribes targeted that will then now bring about the...
You see, we pretend that we do not care about tribes, but we do. And so when this kind of thing is put out, it's because it makes us look bad. So we actually try to fight it and stand on this idealistic pedestal which doesn't exist.
The tribe is a surface.
Joshua Okumu on Twitter says...
We vote this way also.
And Joshua Okumu says, did we really need that political response from the DPP? I feel like he's focusing so much on the noise and he might just not secure a successful prosecution. But also, when you take a look at the description by ethnic group regarding the war against corruption, it also is a reflection of the way in which appointments are done. So if you take a look at some of the big tribes, and remember NCIC's role to take a look at how ethnicity is represented in the various forms. I mean, if you take a look at the two biggest, it is from which communities? The president and the deputy. Are we starting then to say, they are naturally the ones who are in higher places, of them?
The second
one is
actually the Luo.
The Luo. So
the Luo.
Is this the handshake already or what?
Yeah.
But Yvonne, you mentioned...
Meanwhile, Lina, someone is saying some guy called Shady Opio, that one Masai must have been in the wrong place at the right time.
Oh, but you see, at the right time.
But Yvonne, you mentioned something that I need to respond to about this thing about the tribe. And they call themselves the multi-agency task force that comprises the office of the DPP, the DCI, the ESCC, and also the AG. And they were before the Senate Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. And this issue came up again. And the AG himself, and they said the war on corruption is not targeting any individual or community. And it came up again and again. It was actually a discussion that went on for a long time. I think for the DPP realized that releasing that list, what Linus is talking about, it will show the masses that who actually believe that their communities are being targeted, that this is not so. But something else came up during the sitting with the senators. The multi-agency task team was asking the senators to help it in fast-tracking the enactment of what they are describing as critical legal reforms that will aid them in fighting corruption, economic crimes, and recovery of proceeds of crimes. So they're saying that they need a bit more help from the senators, from legislators, to be able to win this fight.
But ultimately, politicization of the war against corruption. Isn't this where the war is lost or will be lost? Because clearly, when you look at the sentiments that are being expressed by various people for and against the publishing of this list, you can already tell there's too much politics around these issues.
There's no politicization because corruption is as political as it gets. So you have to manage the politics, and you still have to continue with the fight.
But for DPP and DCI, what they need to proceed with is finally take what they have found out to court.
And here's...
Because once people are in court, there'll be absolutely no question on tribe.
But here's what they're still working on, because today there was more questioning. The CS's Eugene Wamalwa and Mwangi Kiunjuri, and I'll read you, a statement from Mwangi Kiunjuri in just a moment that he has sent out this evening after coming from the DCI. But I think we can listen to both CS's Eugene Wamalwa and Mwangi Kiunjuri on their day at the DCI today.
All what you need to know is that I was interviewed for exactly 32 minutes, from 12 sharp to 12:32, and I have given the information they required.
What information?
Just what I know about the two dams. That's the interview they wanted. That's the information they wanted to know.
I did receive an invitation from the DCI at about 9 o'clock, and I was there at 9 to shed light on the dams that are under investigation. And we are talking about Aror and Kimore dams in Ageyo Marakwet. I was able to give them the necessary information to explain what I know about the dams, and also just to clarify that the two dams were not really under my jurisdiction.
Yeah, and Kunjuri says over the past 7 months, his name has been dragged through the mud. He's appeared in newspapers, social media, from the maize scandal, sugar, fertilizer, and now the dams. He says he's not asking for preferential treatment. He's not seeking sympathy. He's just seeking fair treatment.
Okay.
Yvonne, I think one of the issues that is coming out from the ongoing events is it's not clear where the dams were domiciled.
Yes.
Which ministry was actually responsible? Was it the Ministry of Finance? Was it the Ministry of Devolution? Was it the Ministry of Water and Environment? There is also talk of Ministry of East African
at some point,
affairs.
At some point, actually, the irrigation docket itself moved away and left the dams
into agriculture. Yeah, and that is what we were talking about here last week about the obfuscation. It's just hard to tell where it sits and who is responsible, who signed for what, because everybody's saying wasn't me, wasn't me.
It's difficult to imagine it is not deliberate.
Ladies and gentlemen, we need to wind up now.
But of course, the dams don't exist.
Linus, we need to wind up. They don't
yet.
So as you